Welcome back to The Fat. It's Cake and Jenny and our fucking beautiful friend, lol, and our beautiful friend, Mr. Mike Rodrigues. How are you, my gorgeous, gorgeous pal?
I'm very well, very well. And it's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to join you boys.
We've upgraded since we did one. We did it a while back, like the day of lockdown, and it was so emotional and so great.
We never released it.
Well, the fucking camera didn't work. We're trying to record it on a phone. It was a piece of shit.
Just rehearsal.
Yeah. We've got the audio,
back.
probably.
I wore the same shirt. I wore the same shirt.
Have you taken it off? It's your COVID shirt.
It's an omen.
I just didn't bring any pants, though.
Lucky this is the setup.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got the GoPro underneath. That little crotch shot. How the fuck you been, sir? What's going on?
Oh, mate, very well. Like, I think we all agree that if you are here and being able to do this today with all the shit that's going on in the world, then that's a pretty good start. So
what is going on in the world? Where are we, Mike Rodrigues? Where are we in 2020?
Different for different people, isn't it? Really, like there's life is life, of course, but in terms of the COVID thing, like there's winners and losers with that. Actually, as it turns out, And
Bunnings and West Farmers aren't having a shit time of it.
Yeah, and even in this sector, hospitality as well. There's people up doing better numbers than they have ever done.
Suburbs,
and,
all suburbs are up. You know,
cafes with Uber Eats drivers like falling out of their doors.
Yeah,
which used to be empty.
Is it gaming's up in suburbs 30%, stuff like this? It's like so. I think it's just a tale of winners and losers, and I think in what we do, what you guys do, you sort of got higher exposure to the inability to get people together. So that's a challenge, and that's why the impact is sort of felt more acutely, I would say. And while I am so obsessed about trying to level it out a bit, I suppose. But
you are obsessed, aren't you?
A little bit.
It never stops.
Oh fuck!
Man,
yeah, I know.
Dog with a bone.
Yeah, but I think you have to. I think so, because if you find yourself in a position of being able to do something, you kind of have to do something.
Let me ask you a question to get rolling. For those who don't know, Mike is the publisher of Timeout Australia, and also the founder and chair of the NTIA, the Nighttime Industry Alliance, which is a foundling lobby group, an embryonic lobby group that's going to be a really determining powerhouse in the years to come in supporting all of our nighttime industries. But Mike, I would really love to know a little bit about where this love of culture and the nightlife specifically came from. Does it have a really clear germination point for you?
No one's really asked me that ever,
Welcome to The Fat with Jake and Kenny.
Yeah.
We'll ask you a whole bunch of questions you've never been asked before.
I think my parents were just really social, hospitable people, and they were immigrants from another country. They arrived at the end of White Australia policy. They were let in because mum was a doctor, and they were Anglo-Indian, so sort of on a different...
What does that mean? What does Anglo-Indian mean?
It's a hark back to Indian.
I was going to say, because you don't look overly Anglo.
No, but in my family,
empire, is it? There's a lot of like English culture and like language and education. Them still lingers in India.
Anglo-sized rather than actually your mum and dad aren't. Your dad's not Anglo.
So the term is covers English people in India, but also is being extended to cover European Indians, and so I've got Portuguese ancestry on both my mother's and father's side. Although I would say, someone slept with somebody at some point, so I'm kind of probably intermixed. Or, for example,
we're all like that.
People got baptised into Christian faith and took names and all this, all got better privileged treatment under the colonial rule, either Portuguese or English. So that's the kind of backstory to my hybrid upbringing, I suppose. And then when they arrived here in Oz, I just don't know. It's like the house was never. It's one of those immigrant stories, right? It's like the house is never empty. There's always some relative staying, and then mum's a doctor, and even not so much these days during COVID, but in my 20s and whatever, she'd be on Christmas Day. We'd have this Christmas for patients and people who were alone and stuff just coming over, and my dad's just the most social man you'll ever meet. I took him to a bar awards once time. Fuck. I will never must because he was not very impressed with the standard of drinks. Anyway, he's like, son, you just go and get me a private table. And is there? I want someone, Johnny Walker. I'm like, well, they're not a sponsored out. I don't know.
That's the first time anyone's done an Indian accent on our podcast. I'm just glad it's coming from your mouth, not Kenny's.
Yeah. But anyway, he's an old sea dog. So, and at the cocktail island bar, it was a shipping container bar, as you probably know. And
we were there. I think
he returned.
We won that year.
Yeah, best bar food,
probably. And anyway, like true to his roots, I found him later sitting in the upstairs VIP area doing like shots of high end rum.
Really?
Yeah. He just like found the VIP. So they were just really hospitable people, and I don't know, maybe it's something to do with that, like because Timeout as a brand is like just that's what it is, right? It's like we want you to have a good time. We want to take care of you if you don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's where it came from, mate, but like I think.
But publishing was never like, it wasn't your first port of call. Like it's what you've fallen into in a sense,
totally,
which has put you really, really in, deep in the heart of that industry, really.
Yeah. This is like, when you go pitch for the rights, I'm like, magazines. I don't even read magazines, but sure. Like I'll go, when I got the rights for Timeout in 2007,
just picked them up,
like something, and I just sort of had to pretend I'd read magazines.
yeah, the thing with staples in it.
And I remember that presentation because at the end of it, I was just such a you guys know me a bit, and I can be a little bit confident, shall we say. And I put this presentation up because I wanted to celebrate Sydney to the world, and there was no time out in Sydney. I'm like, this is fucking a travesty. Like, Sydney's a global city, blah, blah, blah. And so I went in and I'm like, look, Sydney's such a great city, got all these great facets to it, Opera House.
So was it up for grabs, or you pitched to them to sort of introduce it, or they were introducing it and you could pitch for it?
Tony Elliott, the founder, who unfortunately passed away this year, founded in 1968, just a humble editor that had, 60s London, there was just all this stuff going on, and he actually wanted the non-elite people to be able to discover the culture of the city. This was like his mission, and he so he's a bit of not like a publishing tycoon, he's a bit weird, to be honest, like just in that world, and I think that's so every publisher had approached him from here, ACP at the time, Fairfax, but like he just wouldn't give away the brand to license it, and probably because they're trying to cut quite aggressive deals and whatever else, and I remember Fairfax actually were using the Timeout name in contravention of the trademark, and he, this was and we had a connection to the business, and I just went in there, and I think it's just that kind of, I believe this is what I believe. Yeah. Do you know anything about publishing? No, I don't.
But
but I'll find someone who will, and let's get this thing done.
And like we just spoke earlier on the rooftop, and you spoke about. How you present yourself in a job interview, when you'd more run your case of who you are, and does this suit you? It's like, it doesn't really matter what you are, and if I can fit in, it's like, this is who I am, and does this suit you? So obviously, you were the non-gigantic behemoth of corporate media, and you're probably quite cheap, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and it's interesting in that so the rights weren't being tendered or whatever.
Yeah.
They were trying to find the right person to do it, and ended up backing two 30-year-olds to.
It sounds like there was an already very there was already a very cultural centric part of you to kind of get in that space in the beginning. It's not like you went through journalism school. I'm going to be a news reporter, and then fell in love with culture. It's like you were a lawyer, from my understanding.
Yeah.
And were you working in law?
Yeah.
And so were there any kind of other moments that kind of like, this is like, what made you make that call? To go, I'm going to invest in Sydney and in Australia, because you've Timeout Melbourne as well, and to get involved on the front line of speaking about culture and championing culture in the country.
Publishing just a vehicle, and Timeout was a thing that was the really attractive.
Do you know how, like, when you're reflecting on history, you then tell what happened, but probably was not exactly the case? I feel that's kind of what I'm doing now, but it was this.
I'll make it up. History goes to the fucking victors, yeah? History's written by the victors. Like, you're the fucking one in charge, bro. You tell the story as you want it to be remembered.
Glebe in the day is where my parents moved into, and we ended up moving up to Liverpool thereafter. And, there's this kind of thing, if you speak to people from outside Sydney in the west, shall we say, there's, I wouldn't say divide, but like the city's a big place and it's amazing and inspiring and like, you're a little bit scared,
Yeah.
Like I remember I just panic when I have to drive into the city because I'd be like, holy shit, there's going to be cars everywhere. It didn't help I had this like Datsun Sunbird 1983 and like it had so much play in the steering wheel. Had to drive across the bridge to visit a girlfriend in Mossman. It was so scary at the time. Like this thing could career off the road at any point. But I had that sort of like, the big city and then ended up becoming a lawyer at a firm here, Allens, which is kind of one of the big ones. And just, within 3 years, I racked up so much credit card debt I had to leave basically because, I had to go make some more cash overseas. But I really got into going out in the city at that time.
Yeah.
And I just love discovering new things,
What period was this? Early 2000s?
Just 2000 Olympics, So
Wow.
that was my first year of work at Allens and
Hell of a time to be a young fella in the city.
And I think you got to have this curiosity, and I just have this curiosity. Even earlier today, I texted you guys saying, "Don't worry, I'm just sitting up here on the rooftop feeling my age because I'm looking around at the people younger than me, and I look at it and I think I'm curious and learning. I just come from the Lord Gladstone, where I met Scotty Marsh, and he's doing some work for us there and on the wall at Gladstone, and I just love talking to people and learning about things, and I think that's it. This as a publisher, if you're not curious, I think you're not serving your audience. Is at least through your Timeout lens. I know there's other types of publishing, but you got to have that.
There's something at Timeout's always done, and I was just thinking of it when you touched on. So I forgot his name there. Sorry, the founder.
Tony Elliott. Yeah.
Like that idea of putting the culture in front of the non-elite. But I think what Timeout's done amazingly well is shone a light on the true culture. Like there's. What city was that? I want to say London. Is that or is it?
Started London.
Yeah, London. Yeah. So like there's little back streets of like Tottenham or whatever, where there was the best whatever Indian food or Caribbean food or whatever like that just no one knew about because there was no internet, there was no nothing, there was no one's writing about the newspaper. But putting those things like the real depth of culture, giving it a little bit of a light shone on it, so people could actually investigate their city. Like they created the culture in that sense, like to sort of open it up.
Yeah, you sort of like tell some fascinating stories, and one of them does relate to, part of the inspiration for him getting into doing it was a little known band called the Beatles turned up when he was in high school and played, and one of his early interviews with Yoko Ono, I think before she met John Lennon and.
Before she destroyed the Beatles, you mean?
Yeah, as a filmmaker.
She was just a plotter.
and it's this it's this curiosity combined with, and the thing that I don't know if I'm too off topic, but like what I want to say about it is that what sits at the heart of it is to get people to go out and do something, and when in the early print days of the magazine, like Timeout. And Tony, the founder, was obsessive about making sure the fucking phone numbers were right and the tube stop that you could get off to see the thing were accurate. And, and woe betide you if you got the address wrong, because that's what that publication is there to do. It should serve people to go out and find things that inspire them. In some way. And
deepen community, because the more connection, especially in multicultural societies, there is a tendency to be tribal, and you stick to what you know and you understand what you know, and you go to the areas that you grew up in and you know the people. But we're living in a multicultural society, a successful multicultural society in a lot of ways in Australia. The number one thing that makes it a success is the introduction of cultures to each other in a real legitimate way. And the number one way to do that is through food, art, and music. Like sharing food with people. If you're rubbing shoulders with somebody eating, it doesn't matter what you're eating, you're sharing an experience with the other people, even if you're not dining with them. You're all in it together. You're all there. You're all celebrating. You're all having the same experience. And, it's the same when you watch music, when you go to an art show and you're exposed to new themes and new perspectives. And that's really,
It's synonymous with memories.
Yeah, and it's just it's a really powerful thing, and I've never really kind of thought about the role that this specific type of cultural publication has played in shaping where we are now. It's fundamental, really, when you think about it. For a lot of us growing up, Timeout magazine. I remember, Timeout in London and New York, when you'd go and you'd buy the magazine and find out what was hot, and you'd go and you discover the city through this. When without it, it's much easier with the internet, but it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
it's serving the same purpose. All these websites, these eaters or whatever they are, these new ones. It's still it's fundamentally delivering you a cultural experience which is going to deliver you a level of community with and an exposure to a new way of thinking, which is so it's so vital to
and I think
so vital to the human experience, to bond.
When we were all young, I'm sure you guys are the same. Like when you get to the 16, 17, 18, whatever it is. I think I grew up in that, not far from like big cities, but you couldn't wait to go out. Like going out, such a natural, like you query the world, you're excited about the world, you want to investigate, and like, has it become hard? Has it become more difficult? Did people want to go out as much? Do you think, or why has it become so fucking hard to get people out? Like, do you think people are going out in the same manner that they were? Is lockouts a part of it, or is it? Do you think it's now? Do you feel like we're trying to convince people more now than sort of just open up to cater for what they're already looking for?
There's myriad views on it, isn't there? So I think that there's a school of thought that if you're very Sydney-centric at the moment, you'd say that that's lockout and there was an era of people that missed out, etc. But then there's the wider social trend and how people engage with culture. And, one thing that didn't exist in the 60s in London was iPhones and tech, so you couldn't, and YouTube. So if you wanted to get in and feel an experience, you had to get in and feel an experience. These days, there's a somewhat I would describe as a lesser version of something that you can have, particularly if you can whack on a virtual reality headset and there's some atmospherics going. You could theoretically create the Mary's experience at home, which of course is maybe a version of it, but it's not the same, right? Like so.
Well, the thing that's missing is people.
There's people, there's others, there's there's the smell, there's the
sitting in a toilet with a man smoking a cigarette. There's a definite smell in here.
Also, and most specifically, Jake, is the bit you can't control is missing. The random bit is missing.
Yes.
Who am I going to bump into bit is missing. I was on the rooftop here, and that's what I was trying to get at. Like, I want to bump or be challenged by or engage with something I don't already know.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge I have with any sort of, it's like in the last 10 years is all the bullshit of here's an algorithm that, because we know who you are. I don't fucking know who I am.
Yeah.
So now because I'm drinking a gin and soda, you're going to tell me my next best drink is that with elderflower, or maybe I want to switch to brandy. How do I don't know who I am yet.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that age 44, I think 45, whatever. Who cares? No one's counting. But and going back to the thing of the. Without patronising at all, but you remember your own childhood, your own 18 era, where you're trying to find your tribe, your identity is in the process of evolution, and one would hope throughout all life is in evolution, all the way through. I would hope till I can't go any further. I hope that I'm getting better and better, or evolving, or improving my perspective on things, or learning things. And I don't know how you do that reading an encyclopedia, because when we grew up there was an encyclopedia on Panama that, okay, now I know about Panama, or do I?
Yeah.
Not at all.
You don't.
You step off the plane and you smell it.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
So I think that there's this is the social dilemma and all the switching off and all the kind of discussions right now are understanding that that it's just another medium, right? Like the digital experience is just another form of media, like video, TV, radio. Here's this other thing, but guess what? Being together and we understand it now when you're physically distant and Melbourne's in lockdown or whatever. Don't we understand now how for the longest time, there's an imperative for survival to come together.
Yeah.
And be together.
Do you see much hope for where we sit in 2020 for the future of culture and nightlife in both Sydney and Melbourne and wider Australia?
I'm more optimistic about culture in Sydney now than I've ever been.
Amen.
Because
Tell us about that.
Because of the reset.
Because of the challenge to thinking.
It's never been clearer. The challenge, like I feel like it's really sharpened it up, right?
I think so, and I think that the people are questioning a lot. I would say everything, but people are questioning stuff. And guess what? Like, we haven't even hit it yet. Wait till March. Till March, right? In March, people are going to be questioning a shitload more. And I think at that point, we're seeing it now. For example, Timeout has a trade database where we communicate with our commercial clients, and like you're just seeing the number of people being let go because the databases bounce back. The last 3-4 months, right?
Wow.
And you know what that means? It's obviously sad for the people who are losing their jobs, but also there's a reset in thinking in the organisations in which we partner. Has to be. That can only be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm optimistic because I think that there's a lot of bullshit associated with paradigms that have been losing touch with people. So let's pick on one, like name an aspect of city experience, and we could probably jump into it, is it sort of the concept of fine dining and what it was. That's one. There's the concept of high arts. That's another. Like, there's all these things that have been either because the structures have just permitted robotic-like behaviour, or because government funding has skewed the result in a certain way. And I think that the pandemic is causing everyone to question everything, and for the people who, as Jess Miller would say, take delight in the mess, it's never been a better time to be optimistic about what can be created. Now's the time.
So it feels to me like you kind of find that chaos is the thing that we require to really kind of get down and investigate what we want and then pull something out of it.
I think when it comes to creative expression, Jake, in this city, yes. Like, I think in other cities around the world, Melbourne's a different case, but in Sydney, I think that there's an opportunity for creativity to come to the fore, because in order to get us out of a certain situation, there's a role for creativity to be played. And with that comes, so go to the F&B model, right? Like, we all knew there was cracks in it, but this will show that, and it's being demonstrated as we speak. And what does that look like on the other side? I don't know. But I'm excited by it.
Yeah. And the other Jess Scully, when we had her in, she she'd said, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
It's like using what we've gone. We spoke a bit with Shannon about it yesterday.
Shannon Martinez.
Shannon Martinez, yeah. About the, why Sydney numbers were good, because Sydney was very good at already doing what it was fucking told. Because we've been told to not go out for ages. So when we got told to stay in, we just stayed in. And I'm probably the same as you, and I think we've probably spoken this in the past. Like, I just felt it was such a long way away to get back to this like bustling nightlife idea that, we're trying to get sold by the politicians when they change our legislation sort of slightly. But it took getting everything removed from everyone to realize how much you miss those tiny little things. About bumping into a friend you've not seen for ages, or about trying that new bit of food that you just walked past and it smelled delicious, so you just were stopped in because you're hungry. Like, all these little things that we just sort of took for granted.
Yeah, and the thing I think is that our challenge in this city and in others world over probably is like just this political class thing that has our politicians, with some exceptions, too disconnected from the day-to-day and of people's lives. It's so cliche to say this, but there is a political class that sit removed.
Yeah.
And don't, so if you
they've been in charge of our sense making, and they've been responsible for we've given over to them the leadership our cultural spaces and they, you know, our funding for arts. And there's been a real slow death of support for creative industries. But right now it feels like even like this political class has been shown to be so poorly managed. And so like right now reading and listening to what's happening in the ICAC and, you know, and it's just it's almost every fucking institution you peek under the lid on, and it's a horrendous mismanagement. And they just look to the creatives to solve it. The people who have been being fucked over for so long. I'm not just talking culture, like creatives as far as, you know, artists and restaurant managers and et cetera. I'm talking about people who just have a creative take, a new take on problem solving, and not just like pumping out the party line and trying to line their own pockets after they get out of fucking government and out of, you know, out of a seat straight into a plum job with a fucking lobby group or a union, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the reality is they're kind of just left there going, oh, we don't know, so what do? We need help. And where do they go? They go to creative people who they've been shunning for fucking decades. And there's I think that one of the most things I'm most excited about is that whether or not they're willing to admit it, it's what's happening is that there's been a reset in the thinking. And when the number one place that they're like, I've never seen more arts funding ever. And I do not believe it's because they think that arts are going to save us in that pure sense, like, or a piece of art will save us, but they know that they need the community on side, and the community wants that. They're asking for these. They like as they get removed, they don't want a more efficient government. They want more community. They want more to share and talk about. When you've been isolated for months on end, like they are in Melbourne, they don't give a fuck about a train running on time. You know, or the development of a redevelopment of a suburb by a fucking massive, you know, building company. What they and jobs in that sense, what they want is to be with each other, and they want to have someone giving them a clear path through it in a creative way, because it's obvious that the way that they've had the institution structured, they're not set up and they've not been prepared for something as catastrophic as COVID-19, you know, and the economic fallout from it. Although I think that I share your optimism, and I really my fear is that we do the common human thing, which is to forget. We are very good at forgetting, and it makes us incredibly resilient as communities and society, and we get through things because we forget the hardship, we forget the pain, but we also forget the lessons that we need to learn. Yeah. Unless we're jumping on it and teaching ourselves now.
But it's like this thing where you find yourself in, I asked the same thing or said the same thing to you guys when you're on the Time for Business podcast, like that there's a responsibility that is attached to your roles as industry leaders, I would say, and mine in what I do, which is not pedestalizing, it's just factual. And the forget bit is our responsibility to not let happen.
Yes.
Like, so it's a shared responsibility, I would hope, you know, amongst a number of like-minded people to, you know, bear that and hold each other to account on it, as in 3 years' time, you know, we can turn around and say, Mike, I was going to play you the excerpt from the podcast when you said this, and I'll go, that's a fair call, and let me just go, I'm going to get this done now, whatever the case may be. You know, that's the what comes with it, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the NTIA. It was kind of founded at the arse end of the lockouts, and that was its kind of clear one of its prerogatives was to repeal and amend the legislation which has been achieved.
Yeah, like at the arse end, with the point of this is now the time to influence the retraction of said lockouts. You know what I mean? Like with the way to have a voice for how they repeal these rules. So so the small bars and the restaurants got a say, and it's not all withheld by the AHA essentially. So it wasn't bad time. It was perfect time, and it was like, you know, 8 to 12 months out. Like right now we start sort of, now that there's something to influence, Because the 3-4 years before that, you're going to get nothing.
Yeah, that's right. Like, so, it's timing is important, particularly when it comes to elections, I guess. And, the rallies in the street from Keep Sydney Open and so forth, it's kind of been in the wrong time in the political cycle. And we're just aware of an election being 12 months out, and things get put into focus in the same way we're talking about the pandemic. Things are getting put into focus. It's a good analogy, actually, between what's happening now and what happened then. And what was much harder then was having to make it a focus. Now everyone fucking understands it, because whether you're Dominic Perrottet or Michael Rodrigues or Jake Smythe, you have to be physically distant, and maybe your bar's closed, or you have to check into. We understand, and we've been restricted from. So at that time, it was just it was a very deliberate plan to run.
So it had been bubbling around in your head for a while, like sort of biding your time, or.
Yeah, I think the beginnings of it, I was challenged by a friend, Ross Harley, once when I had to do a speech sometime. And this is 2015, I think, and it was, a year after lockout, and I was at Arts and Culture Conference called Remix, and I was talking on food and beverage trends, because in that world I'm seen as a food and beverage expert, if that makes sense. And I was like saying to Ross, I'm like, man, I can get up and talk about this, but what this community needs to understand is that this lockout shit is going to impact them. And he was like, why don't you get up and say that? And I'm like, because the topic says this. And he goes, well, fucking ignore the topic. Just get up and, and I did. And I remember getting onto a soapbox at Town Hall and just sounding out and getting stuck into institutional arts and culture, saying this will come and bite, because audiences are going to stop going out and you're going to lose ticket sales. And there was 3 years ahead of them realising, and that's what happened. And it sort of, I guess, set me on a mission, and I got this name, Soapbox Mike, and
is that your name?
Well,
it's better than fucking what do they call Mike Baird?
Soapbox
Casino Mike.
In Vegas, he's a legend.
Who's that? Just fucking with 2 hookers and a fucking big stogie and a fucking bottle of whiskey. It's Casino Mike.
Yeah, it's my next job. And I was
like, Soapbox Mike's just with pigeon shit all over him in Hyde Park, ranting at shadows.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think it kind of maybe began then, and then I remember one of the defining moments was when a friend of mine now, a chap named Michael Rose, who is. We share the same initials, MR. That's about as far as it goes, and also the fact we're lawyers. It's another thing. But he's the chair of the committee for Sydney, which we work with closely. And he he ran into me in a restaurant. Fuck, he listens to this anyway. He ran into a restaurant and he goes, "Oh, we should talk." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm pretty busy, but yeah, if you want to come and talk, like, here's my office address." And so he came and like, how do we sort out this lockout stuff? And I'm like, well, let me just tell you a story about my life in trying to be a publisher in a market where the New South Wales government, when we launched, was in an exclusive media deal with News Limited around, its ad spend. I'm like, everything we've had to build from fucking scratch. I remember selling like deals for $500 to $1,000 to small arts companies and building the business brick by brick that way. And I remember saying to him, "You're half right and you're half wrong. Like you kind of got the right idea, but this is not the reality." And we agreed at the end of it. I said to him, like, "Mike, no offense, I don't have your time, I don't have your height, I don't have your color to walk around Macquarie Street knocking on people's doors. Like, if you want to stay in touch, like, we can sort this shit out together."
Yeah.
And to his credit, it was pretty harsh, and he invited me to speak to the committee for Sydney. And I'm like, "Are you fucking sure? Because I'm not going to hold back. I'm just going to get up and tell them how." And I got up in this room of people, and I just said, like, we're talking about going out habits in Sydney, and the biggest problem with this is I'm the youngest person in the room by about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a demographic that's 20 years younger than me. Like,
it's always so funny. I like, we're kind of been cast as the, in our role as being like the young punks about town. I'm like, Kenny's about to turn 40. He's turned 40 next year. I'm fucking hot on his heels. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm somehow the fucking, it's a strange place to be, but that the reality is that young people need leaders, And we are young people in terms of what being in a leadership position and a position of authority, and as far as wielding influence. Because you've got to fucking earn it. You've got to be young. You've got to make mistakes. But the young people, they eat up what you give them, right? And they fucking do a really good job of eating it. And it's either shit, and they fucking resent you, and they fucking end up. They don't have anything else, so they just become a group of people who are not going to be inspiring. They're not, because they're not being inspired. They're not going to fucking create beautiful and new and exciting things because they haven't been challenged and they haven't been shown what's possible. As I get older, I'm becoming more and more aware of the fact that youth is really lost on the young. It's kind of it does reside in the older heads and more mature people and I say maturity in the sense that they've just been around. I think there's a real role for older heads to have it, but if you're having it in a vacuum, any conversation in a vacuum is just fucking redundant. So I get what you're saying, but I also, just to kind of pat you on the back, and you're not old. You're exactly what everybody needs. We all are in this time, because the young people aren't in a position of authority. They haven't earned their stripes to fucking speak at the table yet. They are the ones who are spending the money. They're the ones we need to keep out, and they are our next. They are the hope. They are the people who come behind us. But we need to be feeding them now. It's our responsibility to feed them with hope and with and challenge and pull them up and set them in the right direction and tell them that they're fucking being childish and grow up and behave better and do this and do that. But it's always got to be through a lens of trying to lift them up and get them to a better place than we've inhabited.
I agree with that. And to be open to listening and to be open to seeing what they're seeing. That's the bit that I try.
Empathy's huge.
I try and hold myself, I stop myself or hold myself when I'm talking to my editors and, when I'm given the opportunity, in your venues to sit and observe. I want to try and not judge and think and listen and, because it's, in your role, my role, it's I've got to try and take that and communicate it through the pages of Timeout, or into government policy, or in conversations with people who are not connected to it, whose decisions very much set the boundaries, set the rules, set the opportunities, collapse the stage, or build it for the people that are coming. And so that's a responsibility you hold quite deeply. And then, I think the thing, going back to the question on the NTIA's founding, was that after sort of ruffling the feathers, shall we say, of that room, it's sort of 50% agree and 50% disagree. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You just go with the 50% who agree, and then you sort of build a movement from there. And it just sort of happened as, the story from there. We just, fuck, there's an opportunity. What do we need to do? Make it an issue. Okay, let's make it an issue, generate awareness. And there's a lot of people that come along the ride with you, and there's a lot of people who go, well, you're going to fail, and I'm like...
Can we talk about that a little bit? Kenny and I are speaking, and I'm jumping in, and this is something that Kenny's been very vocal with me about, and I think with you too, but... So, Kenny, I'm just going to lead in, and then you jump in. I think you furnished the point a bit better, but just basically I want to talk about the people who... through what I believe is a misguided self-interest, where they're so short-sighted, everything's okay for them. If they just look at their own four walls and that's it, then I can just look after my customers. That's all I need, without investing and challenging and being a part of something bigger. Yeah. The fact that life's going to move on. If you can...
Yeah, what's the separation that they think is plausible and possible to sort of separate themselves from the larger picture, when it's not, like you touched on earlier, Mike, the lockout having this wider effect, and 3 years later it happens, and for people to sort of have a self-interest, or whether it's, I think it's not as much a self-interest as more as, what's the point? You're never going to win. You know what I mean? Just consider your own corner, because we can control our own corner, but you're never gonna tumble over the 8. You're never gonna have a bigger say than the AHA. You're never gonna like what sort of fucking mentality is that? It's and we're not talking. We don't want people out to be there's. I spoke to Mike before about that essence of, you've got to.
You can only have so many people on the soapbox.
But you've got to you've got to come at it from a very gentle place. You don't want to be like the kind of like, oh, by the way, have you heard about my good friend Jesus Christ? You want to talk to them as in like, burn the fire of like, well, fucking, what if everyone just stopped coming? What if we all stopped coming? Like, it's, surely you'd rather be part. We talk about community so much.
Sorry, that's a vape pen, not a fucking regular pen. From my good friend Mother Hurt.
Can I write with that one?
Yeah. You can you'll write plenty up here.
Fucking write your tits off, eh? But
I'll find you a pen.
And I've spoken about it a couple of times already tonight, pre-podcast. The Dave Chappelle thing with David Letterman, and he consistently and constantly talks about community and how community drives everything. Like that's why he doesn't live in Hollywood, because there's no community. It's like a dog eat dog. It's like he lives in a place where people it's like in my town, people would not buy that last thing of toilet roll because they know they've got 3 at home and they don't fucking desperately need it. Like that's what community does. He's sort of looking after each other. And we always pride ourselves in what hospitality is, and we call it a community. And then when it's kind of come down to it, there's so many people just being like, just fairly ambivalent, which is just...
I think arrogant to a degree as well. I find that it's peppered. Look, there's an equal part of ambivalence or, ignorance, but there's also this sense of arrogance within some areas of the hospitality community. We don't need that. We're successful. We're not like the struggling ones. And it's like, you will fucking come knocking. For you to not... It's like people who kind of get on their on their high horse about health funding or education, and then fucking find themselves in hospital and come out going, thank fucking Christ for Medicare, like, oh, we want smaller government. Well, tell me that when you're fucking dying of a heart attack on the side of the road and the state funded ambulance is picking you up and saving your ass, I feel like it's an extreme example, but I feel like without initiatives like NTIA to best serve our voice and our interests on the halls of Macquarie Street.
For fucking free, mate, you add. Essentially, like it's, obviously it's people need to sort of fund these things, but you're offering to be this person on a soapbox for free for this community.
It's a really
arrogant
position
you can do
to take.
Is throw your fucking support behind it.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. Like, I think
we can take a little bit of a harsher line than you probably can because, you're trying to get everyone to sign up, but, fuck them.
Yeah,
they should sign up.
Yeah,
you need to.
I try to remain respectful of people because I think that it takes time for some people to understand a different perspective. That's being generous. But I think going to the heart of your question, and you guys are in hospitality, and I'm a commentator on it, so I'm conscious of that. But I do recall a conversation with Justin North, ex-Bacchus, whose restaurant was next to Timeout's office when we launched, and he had Plan B.
Yep.
What a great metaphor, right? Bacchus fine diner, Plan B burger joint, right? And I remember sitting down with him and saying to him, Justin, we wanted to do something, and I remember him saying to me, he goes, Mike, in this town, you're nobody till you're someone, For X number of years, like no one knew about me, whatever. Then eventually I was dubbed by good food, and
here I am.
And we know how that story ended, or not ended. That's unfair. I don't want to say that, but like how it then would transpire
for sure.
And I think that the challenge
city gobbled some people up.
Yeah, and going back to it, and I think the reason why you guys, at least one reason beyond others, why you guys understand it is because your perspective and it manifests in your business is beyond food and beverage. Right? It's wider than food and beverage. It's at least music, and then P&V, and then arts and culture beyond that, right? But let's agree that you have a wider lens on it. So you understand that ultimately the person who matters most is the consumer, and the consumer is fickle, is fun, is engaged, is not, is different, right?
They need to be led.
Bad day.
And so, when you get to this thing of, I do have a perspective that, and I think it's one of the things that the pandemic will shake out a lot, and it will happen as the restaurant model gets reviewed fundamentally, particularly at $200 a head or more. Like it will get shaken out as people understand that model is based on a certain premise, and if that is what the aspiration is, if that remains the aspiration, then that's a false aspiration in the future.
What premise do you mean? Like, as in that this is the height of what dining should be?
Correct, right? Like
this is the best good.
Yeah, and then you get into it.
The most good thing.
So here's a really good discussion right now that we're having, which is, what is the point of a food review at the moment?
Yeah.
Because what are we reviewing against? And what's the star rating system? Timeout or hats from the Herald or Michelin? Like, well, like, when you can't stand up in a bar or you, et cetera, et cetera.
It's not a level playing field.
It's a 2-hour sitting.
Yeah.
Right?
How's it at 5-star venue when it's not, when you go to, how's Shady Pines retained 5 stars when it's so different to the original 5-star that it got in 2008 when it was a hoot and a holler and running up against each. Yeah. Okay.
So
that's a fair call. Yeah.
How can we do an awards or run a rating scheme against what are we comparing against now? So, this is all being challenged at the moment in a good way. And, so us and other publishers who actually do reviews, like saying, well, we have to park it, we have to rethink it. And, let's write things up and celebrate them. But, that's a whole bit that's gone. So the culture, going back to it, Kenny, I think particularly in the hospitality sector, sees people sort of not necessarily understand that, in order for their business to be successful, they need businesses around them to be successful.
Yeah.
And
the industry as a whole to be, to have a, not just a light, but a fucking halo shining over it, that it's a responsible fucking positive thing for our city.
And if we had have had the NTIA 13 years earlier, we wouldn't have had the fucking lockout laws. Very, very minimal chance, because if a sensible voice had been saying, whoa, stop. Yeah. This is what is going to happen, and this is and because it's well funded, it's got a support base that's got a voice, a direct voice, a singular direct voice.
Could have been like 20 liquor records all banded together.
Absolutely.
Like, and from the industry side, who's like all the leaders coming together to say, this is what we're prepared to do right now, and to stop just getting taken over.
And I want to just mention this because it's funny, when we had our inverted commas AGM, it's just such a...
It was sick.
Yeah,
for our first AGM.
But like the thing was...
Yeah, Kenny's a board member of the NTIA, by the way. But thanks for my invite.
Well, yeah.
Swear too much.
They wanted someone to turn up. Not piss everyone off by wearing fucking football shirts and scratching their nuts.
But we and these things, they some of them are throwaway lines, some of them I really do think about deeply. And the thing that I have tried to do at the NTIA is make it the anti-lobby group. As in, it's like, how does every other lobby group work? Well, let's go and do the exact opposite of how they do what they do.
Yeah.
So what we do for the main part is try and focus on consumer behaviour, as opposed to, I went to school with you, or I'm in the same political party with you, or I wrote a check to you, and therefore you need to do this for me, because that's a shortcut. If you can get consumer behaviour to move, politicians want votes. So our ambition around Unite for the Night, keep our venues alive, is slightly different because of the circumstances, emergency campaign to just try and raise awareness to get relief through quickly. But check, as an example, is really about consumers. It's not like trying to lobby government. It's like trying to say to consumers, like, it's our thing, right? So
trying to have the front foot on a subject that I don't think the hospitality industry, like on a venue side, are really acknowledging. They're more stressing out about, are we doing all the stuff that we're getting asked to do? Because the police are going around essentially bullying venues. We experienced it at Newtown on Saturday night. They turned up just asking for stuff that's not even a part of it, and not even and conversing amongst themselves to be like, are they allowed to do this? Can we ask for that? Like, just
trying to bollock us for the length of the line, and the only reason the line's so long is because it's fucking beautifully socially distanced,
and we're only allowed 50% capacity to the 1.4 square meters. But it's that idea that they're so stressed about that. They're not even thinking about like that people want to come out. They're just assuming that people must be busting to get out.
Yeah.
But there really is a thing there that some people don't want to fucking come out, or like they'll pick their venue very carefully because you have to show, there has to be a sort of a face of doing the right thing.
And this is the thing about like, I'm so conscious of the bubble in which I live, and the venues I visit as Timeout, and of course, we tend to celebrate the best of the city, and so. In a man with a limited amount of time due to my family commitments, I tend to just go to the places we write up. To be really honest, less not as much as I should be out just finding nooks and crannies.
Get swept to the VIP room.
Hang on a second, my friend. This is why you have staff. You have staff to eat in the shit joints and go. Yeah, I had 3 terrible fucking meals this week and 1 great one. What was the great one? I don't need to do the shit one.
That's right.
This is why you exist.
And also, this is the LANSDOWNE VIP room, just so you're aware. So,
Yeah.
So it's but my point I'm trying to make badly there is that a lot of the venues that I go to are surviving this, right? Like they're finding a way through it. But there are a lot of venues that haven't found their way through it. And why I'm saying that is that I think that some of the super, super popular places that are well run and have databases and loyal customers and all of those things, that they don't see the need for wider consumer confidence because they're booked out. And I get that.
Yeah, okay.
But at the same time,
But it's not the point, and this is what I mean by the arrogance. They don't exist in a bubble, And
wait till someone comes in with got fucking COVID. It's out of your control and named in the media.
And they're booked out now. Like there's a difference, right? Like that's wait, and it's in 5 years' time, different story, or etc. And I think that's just a challenge that but like that's my point. It means a lot to me. I've told the story before, but like the day that you guys decided to join the NTIA, it was
a very clear. The day was you came and asked for 15 and 20 minutes of our time. We sat down, had a chat. You put it there, it said we're in. There wasn't a moment of hesitation.
And then you cartwheeled out of the building.
No, I'm going to pull you up. I'm going to pull you up because the way I recall the story, there was, and it wasn't hesitation, but I remember this, which was that you you looked at what I was saying, and there was total risk all over it, right? It was like, this may work or it may not. But you said, you said, yep, like we have to learn, we have to put our money where our mouth is what you said. And I remember you saying, don't like the fee that you paid, it won't come to you in one payment, it'll come from different places over a period of time and whatever it was. And I'm like, but I had your backing, and it was in the sense of not the financial backing, but the belief.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me, and it still does. And it really does, because in those moments, a lot of dark moments all the way through the election campaign, in rooms I sit now, like I sort of feel that if I have your belief, then I can do this. This is sounding really like bromancy, but it is that, because like you have this connection to community that I trust, right? Because you're serving people across multiple venues, across food and beverage, arts, culture, music, what Timeout exists to celebrate on a daily basis. And if I'm managing a team of people who try and write that stuff up, and then I'm trying to take their stories, your stories, and communicate them now through the NTIA to government who are highly disconnected from it. So I can't be everywhere. So you are so important in calibrating, for me, the work that I can do. So, put another way, and by you I mean people in this sphere. If you can't tell me that, and you don't trust me, and I lose your trust either way, then I'm off track. Right. So this is why this is a really important relationship, and you've got a role to play, and I've got a role to play.
We all have a role to play, and I think that the number one thing that people forget is that who are we playing these roles for? And what are we playing them for? And there's never been a more explosive time for hospitality specifically, and there's never been a harder time for the music industry, which is why the only reason we were able to get into the music industry in any way is because of the success that we had with the hospitality industry. But Kenny and I have spoken multiple times. It's like, we've had it fucking good. We opened a bar at the height, a burger joint and bar at the height, in the peak of what it was to be hospitality in this country.
Golden era.
Yeah, the golden era. And it'll be
2013.
remembered for that time. It'll be 2008, I think in Sydney you can mark it with the opening of Shady Pines, a real turning point bar. Like just a watershed moment. It just marked a real change in...
Be better.
I think it was 2000. Oh,
We were
2009.
13. So what's
2009.
Yeah, okay, fine.
2009. It was really early, and a really watershed moment, and because it hit a cultural chord that was the hipster was a real emergent thing, and it just hit so many things. It was very Brooklyn. It was very Sydney. 2009, but it's like saying, "Oh, well done, property developer. You've done such a great job of making so much money in the property boom of fucking of the 2000s. Like, and a fucking monkey could make money buying a fucking shed and fucking throwing shit at it and holding on to it for 6 months. You're gonna make $100,000.
And often did.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Fucking right.
And you see it in restaurants. I know fucking monkeys who've opened fucking restaurants, thrown shit out on plates and fucking made money. And the reality is that for whether it be the lockout laws, whether it just be, the growth of awareness through Instagram and, people, the rise of food through those kind of social media networks, there's been a lot of shit come out. And, for me, we've had it easy, and when it comes time to fucking pay the piper, and pony up and fucking own what you're a part of and really fucking focus on what it is you do, which is to fucking serve the community, build community, make relationships, make memories, get people fucking pregnant in your venue. Like, you've got to create marriages and divorces, and this is what we serve. And a discussion and a dialogue between people of disparate backgrounds because they're fucking shoulder to shoulder at a bar buying each other drinks by the end of the night. Like, this is what we're really about. And the people who are like seriously think that it's about food or drink are fucking so misled. They're just so off the fucking reservation as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's why, it's very much birds of a feather, and to bromance it in, I think you get what we've done. We've came and we opened a fucking burger joint in the back street of Newtown because it was where we lived, and we got very lucky and we hit at the right moment. And then we fucking went, you know what? We want more from our lives than a fucking couple of houses and some our kids in good schools. We want to fucking be a part of something, which is why we're like, well, we love the opportunity for the LANSDOWNE Cup, and we're jumped in, both feet at the same time. No fucking little big toe in first. We jumped the fuck in because this is the whole point. The community, it was a logical extension of what we'd been trying to achieve through food and booze, and we were like, right, we can do this another way as well. And I think that, that with the work of the NTIA, and why it was such an easy thing for us to get on board with, is because I could see the futility of just me existing without a rallying cry to bring people to somewhere central and speak with a very clear and direct voice in the places that it needs to be done. And to be honest, those fuckers, you might be, what'd you say, the wrong height, the wrong colour to walk around in fucking, so am I, bro. I might not be the wrong fucking colour, but I don't look like fucking Macquarie Street. I can't fucking go down in there and do that. But we're on the fucking ground doing it every day. And this is why these alliances are so important.
It's quite funny. Every time I have to appear before Parliament or whatever it is, I kind of half respect the dress code. It's sort of like
half respect. Well, you won't wear socks?
No, I wear pants. But it's one of those where I actually think about it, because you kind of have to, you have to play a little bit by the rules, but you have to bend the rules at the same time. And so I tend to.
Well, fucking they do.
Yeah.
The fucking dodgy cunts.
I don't say you need to be as good as them, but you do need to bend.
They all get found out. They're not very good at it.
Hey, here, I got a question for you. I want to ask you this one in that. Not my podcast, but I'm like
you better fucking tread very carefully. You know whose room you're in now, son.
I want to ask this.
I
want to ask this one because it the thing with Mary's Underground and that whole story, which we don't need to go into right now, but like the thing that I was there one evening, and I was with, I think I can't remember what it was at, but like I was rolling with some of my crew, which are timeouters, and we let's just say I wasn't wearing my suit because I don't have one anymore, but we rolled out onto the street, into what's the place?
Ruby Place.
Yeah, the square,
Macquarie Place.
Macquarie Place, and I was with
so many places,
a couple of peeps, and we had a bit of tussle with some suits walking by. I wasn't involved in the tussle, but there was this interchange between like one community went fucking hipsters, and the people I was with was like fucking suits, and it was and to me like it was an X-suit now on the side of the
the non-suits.
And I looked at I wondered about that, in that when people ask me about the future of the CBD, and I look at it through the lens I look at it, and through lockout and now the pandemic, I look at the analogy is a tide and it washing out all the shit to sea, right? So like lockout made it hard for the CBD, pandemic's making it harder, and when you guys, if you look at like the evolution of the CBD from Central down, and just name checking the sort of Timeout-ish or this scene, you know, Baxter Inn, there's been this march towards the key.
Yep.
And they'd ring a Bulletin Place and then Mary's Underground. I just remember thinking, we have a beachhead. It's probably the wrong analogy, but you know, we're there. It's the other way around. We establish a beachhead on our own beach, but like it's a flag. I remember thinking that this is a flag, and I think that you must surely have thought about the tone of, I'm talking about the upstairs here, and excuse my ignorance if it's got a different name, but like
it's just, we call it rat piss just because of the fucking light box we put in there.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like it's unapologetic.
Yeah,
is how I describe it. And you must have thought about this, and I want to understand.
Kenny can get this one, I think.
Oh well, I think there was definite moment. We're fucking getting too old and probably too smart to just walk through life being like, yeah, let's just go fuck you the whole time. Like, it's fucking hilarious. Like, it's not going to get you very far. Like, it's important. Like you said,
we've done all right.
Yeah. But it's like you say, it's like, you know, I half respect the dress code. It's like we made it a little bit pretty, and was like, we'll make it a bit pretty, and then we're just going to draw all over it and like melt candles all over the fucking thing. And it's like, I suppose with the city, we always think that, you know, there's a pile of suits, but there's surely enough people in that little sort of, little piece, that little circle, that little like planet in the middle there, who don't love that life. Like, they do it because that's where they've ended up. You know, maybe they're earning heaps of cash, whatever, but they want to tell their boss to go fuck themselves on a daily basis.
They're wearing a Metallica shirt underneath their fucking their
that's
shirt.
The way. Yeah, they on their when they put their fucking AirPods in their way home, they're like putting on fucking Pantera or something. So it's like there was always a place for it. So we sort of wanted to ease it in. Look, it came up, and it was for us, if it was so culturally relevant as a music venue, and it just continued our story from having the LANSDOWNE. And again, it was just, you know, I think every step we take, it's about put your fucking money where your mouth is. And we were up against some pretty fucking heavy competition, really. And some fell away because they found other venues or whatever. But there were some great venue operators looking at that space. But I could tell when we had to sit in front of the bankers and tell them why we were wanting to be there and what we were going to do. Like, they literally, we'd sit down and be like, well, we've got some questions to go through, but, you know, let you guys talk. And then we just talked. And then at the end of it, they just all looked at each other like, I think we're pretty good. They didn't ask us any fucking questions. Like, we'd already won them over with the story, like, of what it meant to us and what this cultural step and our story and what it means for Sydney, you know, the legacy of the basement, and that we want to keep it alive. Like, it was, I tell you, what a fucking slam dunk in a way. Our business partners were very great on the other side of it, you know, like really tussling with them to get us like good sort of lease agreements and all the rest of it. But it was, you know, we for that reason, we don't give a fuck where we are. Like, there's a crowd. We're not a heavy metal bar. We're not aggressive. We're not there to piss you off. We're some of the most hospitable, empathetic, friendly, pretty fucking funny, pretty fucking handsome, like people you probably fucking met, and we try and impress that on all of our staff. So we think we have a place in any part of the fucking world. Like, we think that we could open up a fucking shack on a beach somewhere and probably make some friends. You know what I mean? Like, we don't, even though we throw around the word brand a lot, we use the word brand, and we are a brand, but our brand is, the anti-brand. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the people.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because you just use the
Hospitality.
language. It's the language that we use for the NTIA, which is the anti-lobby group. It's sort of like not a. And there's I just wanted to pick your brain on, because I think it's the same thing. It's a bit.
They're all humans though, as well, Mike. Sorry, just to jump in there and finish that sentiment off that Kenny said. Like, people, they're humans, and a lot of the time that people, react poorly, it's out of fear, and the fear is born out of not knowing, and it's being alien, and it's being scary. And the reality is, we're not scary. We're just fucking people. Like, can you say we're friendly people who want to serve you a fucking delicious burger? But, it's wrapped up in this fucking, in our aesthetic. It's who we are. We listen to the music that we like listening to. We attract staff who dress similarly to us and share an aesthetic and share a common kind of set of,
ideology.
Yeah, ideas and kind of influences. And that's why the staff look like that. They don't have fucking uniforms. It's not like fucking curated to that level. But they follow us and they walk. They come to work at the city, and it's fucking amazing. But the reality is, when people, these suits that we're talking about, they're fucking humans who just want a fucking great burger, and probably would really love to learn a little bit about what this fucking whole culture is, but they don't get fucking invited in because for the Shady Pines, one of my fucking favorite bars in the world, they did Baxter, which is very suit friendly when they went to the city. It's just it's literally designed for fucking suits. They couldn't have pulled off Shady Pines in the city, I don't think. Like Frankie's is a fucking, it's so suit friendly in so many ways. And all the respect to them, they fucking know what they do. They're great operators, good people. I'm not shit talking them there, but the reality is, the common story is that these people are just people, and the number one way that we create more community and bring more people on to see our side of the world is through kindness and generosity and empathy, and inviting them in and offering a new experience. And anyone who's going to fucking try to get in a fight because of fucking hipsters, and any fucking hipster who wants to get in a fight because someone's a fucking suit, they're both fucking cunts.
Well, this is like that was my sort of thinking too. I'm like, I don't know who's
the cunt in the city. Both,
right?
Fucking both. 100%. No one's fucking out. And you know what? Possibly the fucking hipster, because you know what you're doing in the CBD. You're in fucking suit territory. Have some fucking respect.
yeah. When you come to
Newtown. If the suit's in Newtown, they probably would have. They probably would have put on their fucking
at least put $1,000 leather jacket on.
The best check shirt and fucking khakis with no fucking socks and boat shoes, and fucking wanted in Newtown, and fucking God bless them.
Yeah,
and they're welcome. We love ya.
It's a I think we come at hospitality from a very historic place, that it's about the owners, it's about the restaurateur, it's about the fucking characters behind it. The food was almost a fucking second thing. It's everything we've spoken about tonight, the environment, the atmosphere, the memories that it created. That's what it's all about. And I touch on it quite often. Not just because I live in Australia now, obviously, but Australians who go on holiday love all the shit that they love to complain about here. They were like, oh, we went to this restaurant, they only had 3 wines on the list, it was fucking amazing. It's and they come in and fucking complain there's not 100 wines on the fucking list, and that everything that they ordered last time's not there.
They change their menu daily. It's so amazing. But last time I came here, I got this. Why is it on? This is 1 star.
yeah. Fuck. I started picking fights on I don't pick fight, and that's the wrong term. But on social media, I would have to do the social media now. I have to. I'd enjoy it. But it's
very good.
Pick fights, pick arguments or pick points. Like the one recently was about the 1-star reviews. I was like, this is all the cunts who write 1 fucking star reviews, because it's only out of hatred and a real attempt to harm people's businesses who are already on their fucking knees. And I had a bit of a rant about it. And I think it was probably the most liked post we've ever done. For us, it was a couple of thousand likes, which was huge for us. They're 99%, 100 odd comments, all really positive. And no one negative. One
And then
person
people
just,
started leaving 5-star reviews on all of
Yeah,
our
we got
fucking
heaps of 5-star
sites.
reviews.
How good's that?
Well,
Yeah, I like it.
one
Go Mary
person-
fucking army.
Only one person had sort of create the point of, well, are you saying that the point of leaving a review is invalid? Like, in some other words, not as smart as I just put it, but but I was like, 100% is what I'm saying. I was like, when it has no context.
Yeah, shut
when
the
it
fuck
has
up.
no
You
integrity,
don't have a
when it
fucking
has, when it has
voice.
no two sides to
Your
a
voice
conversation, and you can
not
literally
needed.
just be fucking lying, or you could just be really drunk, and you get to fucking talk shit about us, and we can't say that. Actually, you were the rudest cunts we've ever met, and the people had to put up with your behavior. And eventually, we've kicked people out. We went up to people and said, "Get the fuck out because you're so rude." They never left us 1-star reviews. It's the people who just sit quietly in the corner and be like, "I can't fucking believe this." Like, don't talk about anything. I feel like the idea of, like, you know, as a rule, when I go to another city that I don't know, you ignore the best reviews and you ignore the worst reviews. Like, that's just a standard rule. Never trust TripAdvisor for one, because that's fucking bullshit. Fucking hell.
Kenny's putting TripAdvisor on fucking
They're not
on
gonna sponsor
fire
us.
now.
Do you know what I do when I go to other cities? This is my hack.
Timeout.
That is on the record, yes. Off the record, I tend to use a connect from here to find someone decent in the bar sector, in the bar industry specifically, in another city. So you get a reco into one of the best bars in the world, generally speaking. You go on a slow night, you end up talking to the bartender, and then you ask the bartender where to go, because the bartender of one of the better bars in the world on a slow night is generally speaking serving best hospos in the city on the same night.
That's true.
And so I was just
Insider's fucking tip. It's
Yeah.
a hot tip, son.
and so I would navigate the world that way when I was allowed to travel, and I swear by it. I swear it's the
We
best,
did that in
best
Paris.
Swiss city
We
hack.
did that in Paris until it got to like 11 p.m. We're like, where do we go to get drugs now?
yeah.
And they started. They
and then
like,
they
go to this
sorted
place.
that out
And within
too.
10 minutes,
We had
we're
drugs.
back at these. We had drugs. We're at this boy's house. We're having the best fucking time.
I fucking puked my hole up in that cunt's toilet for about an hour. I was not in a good way.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to wrap this up because I feel like with Mike being such a good friend, we're gonna have a series of Mike Rodrigues chats. We have our pal Rennie upstairs, so hopefully waiting patiently. But I don't know if you still want to finish with the two questions we always sort of.
Well, I added a new one in, but you know, there's 3 questions now.
Holy moly!
So, what's fucking pissing you off right now?
What's pissed me off right now? Oh, I'll tell you what's pissed me off right now is that there's about 6 weeks left to play towards the end of the year, and everyone's like woken up and going, "I've got 6 weeks to achieve something in 2020," and everyone's trying to achieve something, and half the infrastructure to allow it to happen is not there anymore.
Do you feel the requirement to achieve this year? I feel like you've achieved a lot already. I've achieved a lot.
I do, man. Like, I think I just am restless. I'm always restless, and at this time of the year, I'm always just going, just get through to December 1, because you can't after that. It might like doesn't really matter what I do after that. I can just ride the wave of fun thereafter. I think that's what kind of pushes you to double down, because you're talking about the delight in the mess, right? Like that's a window. It's like this portal that's opened up for a period of time, and we got to go in there and create as much positive change as you can before it closes up. That's how I look at this, and so I'm pissed off with myself, pissed off with my inability to move as hard and fast as I would like, to deliver as much as I can before I fall in a heap.
A secondary question to that: what's your biggest hindrance? What's the thing that's pulling you back the most? What are you most frustrated about yourself?
We'll take this one to because when you were talking to me on the podcast that I had you on, and you said everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Mike Tyson.
Thing, it's like I just I think that right at the moment I look around, and it's like it's the Game of Thrones scenario, right? There's only so many people going to be left standing, and the real warriors will get through to that final council, and it's just getting harder and harder and harder and harder.
No one wants to be Reek.
Yeah, and you're just like, I've got to fucking find another gear in a year where there's all the gearbox is broken.
Someone's been fucking snapping off the teeth in your fucking gears.
That's right, and I remember last night, we're hosting this thing next week, and I was just like, come on, brain, give me another couple of hours more, and I was just like, I just can't go any harder. But so I was thinking about the metaphor of the boxer and what sort of defines someone who can just get up or can just keep going that extra round, or just
get punched in the face and just fucking square up and get back into it.
And that's the
more than that, apt analogy is someone who knows that get punched in the face is part of their plan. That's the response to that. It's like everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face. Like, yeah, you know what my plan is? My plan is I'm gonna get punched in the fucking face. I know
it's by Mike Tyson.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't quite sure how hard it was gonna be.
Yeah, like this. Holy shit! Where am I?
Hey! Can you punch me in the face right now?
I'll punch you. I'll sock you. Second, what are you grateful for today?
I'm always grateful for my family and the amazing honor and privilege I have to do what I do, to have the education that I have, to have the friends I have, to have people in my life, including present company, that are able to work collectively to make a change. I'm just so that I'm grateful for that.
That's beautiful. And mirrored back, by the way. And the last one is what's your habits and behaviours now that you know, or you have an intuition that in 10 years' time you're going to regret?
I think this is how you live your life.
This is a stolen question from my very it's a stolen question from a podcast I listen to.
That's
Sam
a good
Harris.
one. That's a good one.
It's a great one. So I can't take any credit for that question. I think it's so insightful.
So the behaviours that I regret, like it's. The one that I think is, it's what vice do you go to when you need that support to get you through that you don't really need to go to, right? Like
masturbation.
Well,
what if that's post all the cooking you've done?
I think I told you the story about earlier when I went to the banh mi store in Annandale and it was busy, and then I went to the bottle shop and bought 2 bottles of bourbon and some prosciutto instead. I do. It's hard. Hey, I'm worrying old habits because Timeout is a story of like epic failure in this country in terms of launching on the eve of the GFC, and then having to be rebuilt. And there was an era of the business where I was literally just fueling myself from about 4 p.m. by like changing my environment, and it gives you a start to a new day. And I miss that right now because whenever I get lethargic or whatever, I normally grab my laptop and just go to a new venue or do something like that and have a drink and away, and it's the next day is better, and I think there's only so long you can do that, Jakey, before your jacket that you got to wear to sit before Parliament doesn't fit. So I'm going to leave the trash can bacon off my burger tonight.
yeah, it's the bacon that's doing it for sure.
We used to do it to some we did. An old chef used to do it when people were like, "Oh, I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm gonna have, I'm just gonna do this," and then they'd put like 4 slices of cheese on every burger that they ordered.
Fuck them. Well, listen, Mike, it's been a great pleasure, and we obviously, like I mirror Kenny's sentiment. We'd love to have you back on again and again, and especially give us updates. Yeah. We didn't even get into talking about the NTIA, the government's response to boosting the nighttime economy. And maybe it'd be great for you to bring in one of your fucking little Macquarie Street mates, either John Graham, or we could get one of the Jesses to come down and actually shed some light, to have a bit of more of a panel discussion around that. And
I think you should do the grill or something like that, and just like let's put 2 of them in a room and just fucking go at it.
Well, we should make them fucking. I'll put fucking razor blades on their heels and make them fight.
Yeah, but it's not. I think. Talking to you, it's ongoing. It's like that swimming pool test kit. We get to sort of like you to us and us to you, get a sort of idea of where each side's at, so we can sort of just hash it out a bit more. And and again, I know this is about the 3rd time we've spoken with you, but it's such an appreciation, respect for what you do. The fact that you have young kids downstairs and you're sitting upstairs with fucking, matchsticks holding your eyelids open so you can keep trying to finish the work that you've started and that you've promised and that you generally do for free for this city and for people like us and for the wider hospitality industry. So open your fucking eyes, you lot, and realize what's happening. And thank you so much. And it's a fucking pleasure as always.
It's my pleasure, my privilege, my honor. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. Mike, I agree. It is your privilege and honor. All right, ciao for now, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Woo!